What's up, everybody? Welcome into Tom Curran's Patriots Talk podcast. Phil Perry alongside. Got a good one for you today. As we wait for the Patriots to fill out their staff, make their moves at coordinators, Phil and I are going to hit on some coach-quarterback duos. Robert Kraft has said time and again, coach and quarterback is what you have to have to succeed in the league. So where are the Patriots relative now to the rest of the league with their combo? Also, when Mike Vrabel, Phil, looks at his team, does he see cohesion in their playing styles? What are the Patriots, and will 2025 be a placeholder scheme until they can further morph it to what they want? Also, we're going to take a look at the news coming out of North Carolina. Bill Belichick continues to fill out his staff in dribs and drabs. Matt Prefer becomes the special teams coach. Not really handpicked by Bill. Freddie Kitchens work with Matt or Mike.
It's Mike.
Is it, Phil?
It's Mike.
Thanks.
Prefer.
Right. So I got both ends wrong. Anyway. Yeah. So he's coming aboard. But the interesting thing is Albert kind of murmured last week on Beetle and Zoe that Bill hadn't executed his contract. It kind of looked like it fell out of his mouth. And those guys were looking at him, and you could see Albert was like trying to find his way out of the little maze that he had put himself into. Now, Jonathan Jones from CBS Sports has also said that Bill has not executed a contract. In turn, Mike Lombardi, who is wearing multiple hats down there in Chapel Hill, GM, head recruiter, and now SID, media relations guy, has said, nothing to see here. How many times has Mike had to say nothing to see here? But these two are like Thelma and Louise down there, Phil.
It's unbelievable. It's just wherever he goes, drama seems to follow Bill Belichick, and
Mike.
And listen, you're inviting it to some degree. It does sound like this isn't the most unusual thing in the world. I think right. Sharon Moore didn't have a contract officially signed until the middle of the football season when he signed on with Michigan. So I think this is obviously worth watching, though, because we know Bill would like to get back into the NFL. And I've been saying this all along, Tom, ever since we found out that there was this $10 million buyout. And now we don't even know if that's going to have to be fulfilled if Bill Belichick wants to leave because the contract's not signed. But ever since we even heard about that was not prohibitive. $10 million for a billionaire owner is nothing if he's the guy you want as your head coach. So I think it's been baked into the contract, signed or unsigned, for a long time.
If Bill desperately enough wants to go, I mean, frankly, the guy is pretty, tight with a buck. He could find that in the couch cushions. I exaggerate. But it is funny because when you mention, people say, it's standard fare in college. Well, it's not standard fare to have the greatest coach of all time go down to the college level because he couldn't get a job at the pro level, but still want to be at the pro level, even though everybody's saying that we don't want to be at the pro level because it sucks up there. There's a different, as you know, I'm not telling you anything. There's a difference between Sherrod Moore, and did I screw up his friggin' name too, Phil?
Sharon.
Maye, Sharona, Moore, and Bill Belichick. So we'll keep an eye on that. For a guy who is as taciturn with the media and wants to be in his spider hole and not interacting with us, he does an amazing and astounding amount of stuff. And we've watched it for years, whether it's Tim Tebow, Chad Johnson, Albert Hainsworth, the signings that they would make. I remember 2010 and 2011. I find he really loves this stuff. He really loves bringing people in who are going to bring attention and then say, well, wow, what's the big deal? Why is everybody talking to me? So we'll keep an eye on it, Phil. Last thoughts on that?
What do you think the odds are of him landing in Dallas? Because Dallas is the one that reportedly Bill would have been interested in had he known the job was going to open up. They were the latest in terms of getting rid of their coach, Jerry Jones, operating in a bit of a questionable fashion, but they're obviously on the hunt. And it seems like listen, selfishly, we would like for Bill Belichick to take that job so he's back in the NFL and we could follow along, and it would be a lot of fun, especially down there in Dallas. But if he's at all in consideration, I don't know if he is, between him and Deion Sanders, I don't know if you could have two more different personalities. Both of them are actually, I think, pretty old school football minds, if you want to put it that way. But do you think it would be possible for Jerry to reach out to Bill and say, we went through our interview process. You're our guy. So we got to officially interview you. We got to officially bring you in, but you're going to get the job. You want to come? You think that would ever happen?
I think there's a minor chance of it just because Bill is not one to necessarily pledge fealty and stick to it with many things. So yeah, I think there's a chance of it. I don't think it's likely. I think the smartest thing for them to do would be to hire Kellen Clemens ASAFP, but
Kellen Moore.
That team's a disaster, literal disaster. And you know what? When you say, okay, we're going to hire Bill Belichick, what was the problem the Patriots ran into with Gerard Mayo? Not just Gerard's inexperience, but the inexperience of the entire staff. What was the Patriots' problem in 2022 and 2023? They didn't have enough coaches. They were not up to date in the personnel department. Bill would make whatever decision in personnel he really felt like by that point. The collaboration snapshot of 2021 kind of faded, is what I'm hearing. So you're going to hire Bill. Who's his staff? Who's coming with him? Steve, Brian? I don't know. Is he going to bring Gerard in, be the DC?
No, I don't think so.
No, I don't either. But the problem with Bill Belichick's teams at the end was they were poorly coached. That I don't care what happened for the 60 minutes on Sundays. Once Josh McDaniels left, the bottom fell out to an extent, especially on offense. Steve and Gerard did a fantastic job on the defensive side. And Bill was less involved there, but they were using his brain. Too much time on Bill. I want to jump into a really cool quote, Phil, that we heard, and this is where I want to start, is discussing the Patriots roster. Ryan Cowden, he'll be joining the Patriots front office, coming over from the Giants. He worked with Mike Vrabel in Tennessee. Here's Cowden talking about Roger McCreary, a cornerback that the Titans had when Vrabel and Cowden were both with the Titans. Give some insight into his philosophy.
We all want the perfect prototype at every position, right? Give me the height, the length, the speed, and everything. But it's not how it goes. We don't get everything. And I think when you look at guys, John alluded to it a little bit earlier. Coach alluded to it about wanting guys that may not always have the most talent. Not to say Roger isn't super talented, but if you say the short arms things that followed him around, well, how many people caught the ball on him? How many times is that a factor? How many times was he in phase at the top of the break to mirror the footwork of the receiver so there is no window to pass the football in? How good is the technique of stabbing through the pocket, to really be perfect in the technique to allow him to overcome something that may be deemed as a deficiency when in fact it's maybe not so.
Phil, we don't know who the DC is. We don't know what they'll run necessarily, but what part of the defense is most important to address first, and with which players?
I think it's about affecting the quarterback, as Vrabel put it during his press conference the other day. Affecting the quarterback. And so that to me means pass rush.
With an A.
That means getting Christian Barmore back on the field if you can. It means getting the most out of Keon White. It means adding to that group and making sure that you have the talent up front to be able to occasionally win a one-on-one in an obvious passing situation. So you don't have to send the house. So you don't have to cover. How many times do we talk about blitz zero or cover zero? And they felt like they had to bring everybody so that you had one more body than they could block because you didn't have anybody that could win a one-on-one. It wasn't enough to create one-on-one. Some defensive coordinators are great at creating one-on-ones because they know if they do that, they'll have a matchup somewhere that they can win. The Patriots couldn't even get by doing that with the talent that they had. So they need to get more out of the guys they have, Keon White especially, and I think Vrabel will be adept at doing that, but they also need to add pieces to that group so that they just have the horses to win those battles.
I envision a very interesting relationship between Keon White and Mike Vrabel. They're either going to make beautiful music together or it ain't going to work at all. Because Keon White is a smart, outspoken, introspective. He's on a different plane intellectually than most players, and he is given to questioning, which Mike Vrabel, I think, probably was too. So hopefully those two can find common ground, and the skills and power and speed of Keelan White can be tapped, and the Patriots can live happily ever after with a very talented player. But Phil, they are dead ass last in sacks per pass attempt in 2024. Last in the league in sacks per pass attempt. 5.25. They were 28th in interception rate. This is a team that in 2022 had Kyle Duggar's singular brilliance as a turnover machine to thank for the fact that they got to 8-9, and Marcus Jones punt return against the Jets. God, that season at 8-9, that was totally a smoke and mirrors mess. Anyway, do they have anybody on the team who's a diamond in the rough, who is untapped, and just, hey, this guy can be, for lack of a better term, and I'm not saying it because he's the coach, maybe prop to my mind because he was, but Mike Vrabel, buried on a roster, but really good and able to be tapped into. They got any guys like that?
I mean, Keelan White, Tom, is the one name that comes to mind, because he, as talented as he is, the production just hasn't been there, and so he's not like to me, he's not a household name league wide.
How about Christian Ellis? Or Joe Giles Harris?
No. I think the guys that you're hoping to get more out of are the guys that are already playing a lot. You know, Anthony Jennings. Can you make him a little bit more of an impactful pass rusher as opposed to this edge-setting first and second down guy that plays great against the run, and he has for years now. It's part of the reason they re-signed him. But can you get more out of him in passing situations? I don't know. And Mike Vrabel might look at it and say, I don't know, because he was pretty open the other day about how he's not even sure they can take advantage of bad football. And so, to me, he's going to look at this the way, maybe not exactly the way the last staff did, but in a similar fashion, which is to say, we need better players. We need better here, and then I'll get more out of them.
They're in a real quandary between the lack of an offensive line. Never mind receivers. Honest to God, never mind receivers for a second. If you're living on planet Earth and you've been watching the Patriots for the past 2 years specifically, the receivers are almost moot because of the lack of protection and the dysfunction up front. I want to see great receivers too. I want to see them add there. But it does have to ride in the backseat to protection and the ability to run the ball a little bit, but more than that, protection and cohesion. Additionally, you can't play defense when the quarterback has his feet flat on the ground and surveying. I mean, Justin Herbert, it looked like friggin' 7-on-7 red jersey. Those two things are the most critical, I think, to the team. Yeah, the receiver, if you want to get to 11 wins at some point from 4 the last 2, you better add somebody in the receiver room. But Phil, right? It's that meat and potato shit has to be addressed.
It does, and that's what people in the league have told me for months now, going back to, the middle of this past season, in terms of where should they be investing or trying to, or, around the trade deadline, what should they be trying to acquire? And everybody just looks at that offensive line, and I get it. They look at that offensive line and they say, you've got how many practice squad guys that are starting for you up there in Foxborough right now? That's not how it should look. And so they need to at least get back to average along the offensive line, which I know our buddy Steve Palazzolo has been saying for a long time. Can you just get average play from the 5 guys you have starting there? You don't need Orlando Pace at left tackle. If you've got him, great. It could help a great deal. But you just have to be able to win your fair share, or what should be expected of a legitimate NFL starter at your position. And then you try to fill out the other pieces with some above average talent, and then maybe you're off and running. And if you've got the right quarterback, maybe that guy can get above average play out of what look like average pieces at receiver or tight end or running back. So I'm with you. The protection matters. I do think the running game really matters because, Tom, you are, in some ways, you're protecting the quarterback by being able to run it more consistently with better offensive linemen. Yep. Right? You're giving him a break in terms of the things that he's going to have to diagnose and the decisions he's going to have to make before and after the snap. So there's a little bit of a mental break in there. You give him a breather. to that degree, but you're also allowing him the opportunity to eventually get some of these play action passes where you can traverse the field in one shot or two shots, as opposed to 15 or 16 and just chipping away at it with, screens and slants, because your offensive line can't protect for you. So it all comes together, or it all fits in together, and it can work if you do have at least average play on the line. But I think they've got like two spots spoken for there, Tom. It's David Andrews maybe coming off of injury, and Micah Wenu, and after that, I think you're looking for new faces.
I mean, there's humans there that we, at one time or another on this pod or in your coverage that you're on NBC Sports Boston, have proclaimed guys to be fairly capable, whether it's Caden Wallace had a good game, or Leighton Robinson had a good game, or City So might be a guy you can use. I mean, Christ, I wanted to say Antonio Maffi right there. He's gone. Gone. Good players, seemingly, or players with potential to be capable, having to be released a year after they got here. That's the player, that's the coaching, that's the fit. And I just wonder sometimes, Phil, how long it will take before the Patriots can do what they want to do, be who they want to be, say what they want to say. Did I say something stupid today? That's from Randy Moss, I think. Boo, what I want to do, be, want to be. Yeah, the DJ Steve Porter, Randy Moss remix.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that?
Yeah, you were a huge fan of that. I remember you passing
I love that
around.
guy.
Yeah.
So listen, we're going to keep an eye on that. We're going to keep an eye on all of it. And we're going to keep an eye on the coordinators. I wish I could give you guys some intel. I ain't got none. Haven't heard anybody interviewed.
Can I ask you?
Let's press them today on that.
Can I ask you?
Let's press them.
Yeah, let's press them. Let's get on that. I've spoken to some people that are a little surprised at not how slow that process has gone, but the fact that we haven't heard about interviews going out. Maybe it'll happen today. Maybe it'll happen as soon as we jump off this podcast. We're taping it. It's early afternoon on Thursday. But Mike Vrabel press conference Monday. I believe he said on Monday, this week we're going to be interviewing guys. So, Judge Judy meme. Hey, what? Hey.
See, Phil and I are strategically intuitive as to you don't get up people's buttocks right away. We're going to ask, but we're not going to just start. What's going on? Because there's ways to do it. Okay. Relationship building means you don't start asking them on Monday at 3:00. Who's coming in? Give it a little, but it's time to talk. It's time to ferret that out. Everybody does it different. Okay. Journalism is an interesting, it's an art, folks. I'm sure you all agree. Journalism, it's so difficult. I'm like a Renoir. Yeah, Phil.
Who are your top 3 offensive coordinator candidates for the Patriots?
Josh McDaniels, Nick Caley, and Don Coryell.
Oh, that one might be tough.
Late Don Coryell.
Yeah.
It would be a good ad. I mean, I really think it's probably going to be Josh McDaniels. And so any Josh
McCown interest from Minnesota?
Sure.
Spent time with Drake Maye in high school?
That's correct. He did. What is he at Minnesota right now?
I believe he's quarterback's coach.
Yeah, bring one out. I think that would be a staff that could really probably beat any team in the league still. Football wise.
He's quarterback's coach. I was wondering if he had some other sort of passing game title, but it looks like it's just quarterback's coach.
Do you find it interesting Matt Patricia hasn't signed on with Bill down in North Carolina yet? I was thinking about defensive coordinator candidates, and he popped into my brain. Not that I would suggest him, but
yeah, I do find it interesting. But he's got a pretty young family still. He's probably not looking to move. He's probably made a decent amount of money, of course. Last
got a lot of Lions money.
Yeah, so. I wonder what's going on with Joe Judge. No Joe Judge.
A lot of Giants money.
Yeah, that could just be it. Could be as simple as that. Those guys maybe want to, if they are going to take a job, they'd like it to be in the NFL. Did you know the name? One more offensive coordinator name, because I found this one interesting last night doing a little research. Charles London. Does that name ring a bell to you? Because he was here.
Chucky London, sure.
In New England. he was the director of stadium operations, which I believe is somebody who, for concerts as well as games, is talking to team security and making sure they've got all the checkpoints down and, clear bags versus opaque bags and, things of that nature. I don't know. I can't pretend to know all the ins and outs of what a director of stadium operations does, but he was doing that here in New England like 20 years ago and said, you know what?
The DSOP?
The DSOP. He said, I'm going to get into coaching, went to be a graduate assistant at Duke and has just worked his way up the ranks. And now he's in Seattle as the quarterback's coach. But again, began his career here, director of stadium operations. Like, is he picking what's going on the scoreboard during games? I would love to know what that job entails, but I do find it to be a very interesting and sort of a
it's really cool.
A cool story of you're choosing your path in life and elevating.
Now, if you were working from 2 to 6 or 10 to 2 on either of the major radio stations, you would immediately say, "Oh, so they're going to hire a scoreboard operator?" And then go for the next 7 minutes on that. But let's vet this out a little bit. He was a running back at Duke. He was with the Bears in 07 to 09, offensive assistant, quality control. Then he went to Penn State. Then he went to Houston, where I'm sure he encountered Mike Vrabel. Back to the Bears, back to the Falcons as a QB coach in 01 and 22. And then he was with Tennessee and Seattle, passing game coordinator in 23 for 1 year.
With
That'll be
Vrabel.
for 1 year last year with the Titans. So we have Malik Willis and Will Levis and Ryan Tannehill. And then quarterbacks coach out in Seattle, as Phil said. So he has paid his dues. Interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting name, Phil.
Just want to throw that one
From
out there.
DSOP,
Cool story.
From DSOP to OC.
Cool story.
All right, time for the tears. No more tears. No more tears. All right, so here's your quarterback coach duos around the NFL. I teared them up, Phil. And I don't know how deeply you interrogated these. I like saying interrogate these things. Or evaluated, but just thought about. Let's start off at the top. There's only one team at the top with the chef's kiss, the creme de la creme. It's Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Concur?
Concur, and I just want to say the one thing that I thought of when I saw the subhead for this, Chef's Kiss, I thought of that Snickers commercial where the guy's painting the end zone. Somebody comes out and says,
great googly moogly.
"Hey, that looks great, but who are the chefs?" Great googly moogly. Anyway, yeah, that's one with a bullet.
All right. Second tier only includes 2 teams. Tier is called If It Wasn't for Kansas City. You got Lamar Jackson and John Harbaugh, and Josh Allen and Sean McDermott. And I am doing these in order of how I see them organized. Agree?
Yes, I agree. McDermott is interesting because if they fall on their face, I could see people starting to get frustrated. I say fall on their face. If they fall on their face in the postseason this season, they continue to come up short. That at some point has to fall on Sean McDermott, no?
Yeah, it depends what it looks like when they're falling short. But, I mean,
Yes.
Allen is so superior that I put him up there in the number 2.
Can I just say you are basically ranking the quarterbacks and the coaches in their skill levels. It's not necessarily like you're ranking how well they fit together. You're kind of looking at the talents that both of these guys are bringing to the table, and you're kind of adding those and then ranking them.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, we're going to get into the highly capable group here. And I think Dan Quinn's an underrated coach because he wears his hat backwards, and he, was head coach of a team that blew a 28-3 lead, but he's a good coach. And he is part of the highly capable group. I'm going to go first, though, with Jared Goff, Dan Campbell at the top of the highly capable group. Then CJ Stroud, DeMeco Ryans. They should probably be lower in the highly capable group, but they belong. Bo Nix, Sean Payton, highly capable. I've seen enough. Matt Stafford, Sean McVay in the highly capable. And then Jaden Daniels and Dan Quinn in the highly capable. The next one's going to be the most discussed. But
so I actually have some questions here, and it does have to do with some of the duos that are in your next category. I'm still not a Jared Goff guy. I think he's probably going to be the reason they don't
tough shit.
Go all the way here. Listen, I'm just telling you, he's not the reason for their success. They've got a great group around him. They've got great coaching, obviously at the coordinator level and at the head coach level as well. And so to me, he doesn't really fit with your next category because of what your next category is named, because he's kind of established what he is. I have a hard time putting him in a category with Stafford, who I think is a far better player, and McVay, who I think is maybe the second best offensive coach in the league, right? Or 1B right there with Andy Reid. So I got questions there. And Bo Nix, Sean Payton, you're crazy. Bo Nix, Sean Payton.
Highly capable? You don't think Bo Nix and Sean Payton are highly capable duo?
Not when compared to some of the other people that are in that category and that are in the next category. You've got arguably maybe the best quarterback in the league in the next category. Guy went to a Super Bowl with the coach that he's still playing for right now. Went to a Super Bowl. And you got Bo Nix, Sean Payton rated ahead of those guys? Come on.
Yeah. Okay, starting to wonder, ladies and gentlemen. This I knew Phil would get up in an uproar. He loves his Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor. And this more is rooted in starting to wonder about Zach Taylor. You can't get your ass kicked in the season opener the way they did. I mean, that loss to the Patriots kept the Bengals from seeing things that they should have been destined to do with a great quarterback and unbelievable receivers, perhaps the best troika in the NFL. So I got some questions there. I also have some questions about Jay Herb. Love him. And some of those picks were not on him, but I'm just starting to wonder. That's the name of this group, Starting to Wonder. It's not a Jim Harbaugh starting to wonder, but it's a Justin Herbert starting to wonder. And when I say starting to wonder, it's not whether he's good or not. It's like whether or not he's going to be, he's ever going to get to that point where he can get through, and he's got to get to an AFC championship game for Crochet. Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur, I think they deserve to be there, more like because of Jordan Love. And I got starting to wonder with Jalen Hurts because I like him. I understand how productive he has been, but I don't buy him, even though that they were on the cusp of a Super Bowl win, and I loved him and he deserved every bit of MVP consideration. I don't think he is good enough. Not that he's bad. I just don't think that I see in some crunch time games when he's really dealing with stuff, he's not as accurate as I would like him to be. So have a day, Phil.
To me, Joe Burrow and Zach Taylor, Jalen Hurts, Nick Sirianni, they have to be in your highly capable category.
Okay.
Because they're a whiff away from hoisting a Lombardi trophy. Both of those guys. And they're both, still right in there in their primes. And I know their coaches are not perfect, don't get me wrong. But I think Zach Taylor is good enough if he had a decent enough defense. And now maybe I should penalize him more for the defense not being better, because you are the head coach. You're not just the coach of the offense. But their offense was pretty damn good this year, and he's an offensive guy. I guess I'm giving him a little bit of a pass for that. So I'm putting them in highly capable, and then I'm creating a whole new category. And I'm using your own words where I'm just not sure they're good enough. I think is how you just put it. And I would put Bo Nix in that category. I would put Jared Goff and Dan Campbell in that category, and it might just be a 2-unit category. But I think there has to be some line of demarcation there where Stafford and McVay aren't on the same plane as Goff and Campbell. That's all.
Wow. So you want Goff and Campbell dropped down to Starting to Wonder?
No. They're in my new category. They're in my I'm not sure they're good enough category, and Bo Nix as well. They're knocked down a peg, and Burrow and Hurts are knocked up to highly capable.
Okay, I certainly knew that was going to be something worth discussing. All right, now we get to Drake Maye. Phil's going to freaking love this one too. Lord. Right behind the Starting to Wonder, rising, and this would be I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 13th in the league, rising, Drake Maye and Mike Vrabel, and then projecting J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell.
All right.
Next group.
Yeah.
Look at it. He wants this. Go
ahead.
He doesn't know what he wants to say.
No, go ahead. I know what I want to say. I know.
I just, you haven't seen enough from Drake, maybe. You haven't seen enough from that duo, maybe. It's a really crappy team here in New England. They might go 5-11 and then win the last one and go 6-11. We'll lose it and go 5-12. Still working off a 16-game brain. But it's an attractive duo because of the skills of the quarterback, the experience of the 2021 Coach of the Year, who was swept out of Tennessee in large part because of dysfunction and injuries led to that. So, and then Kevin O'Connell is one of the best offensive coaches in the league, and you could just see his expression when the Vikings were peeing down their leg and pooping their pants and throwing up all over themselves, just every single bit of bodily fluid pouring out of Sam Darnold. You could see Kevin O'Connell's kind of half smirk head shake saying, yeah, we're not going to do this next year. And what they will do is they're going to put Jeffrey James McCarthy in there, and he's going to be a wonderkid. And he's going to be the comeback player of the year, even though he's not coming back from anything.
Oh, he is coming back from a major
injury. He wasn't here yet. So he can't come back. But so there you go, Phil.
So I think J.J. McCarthy's too high. I like him, and I said this during the draft process. I just didn't like him as much as Drake Maye, and I like Kevin O'Connell. But I don't know. Was that all Sam Darnold? Was it all Sam Darnold? So as the coach, it's not on you to cook up something to get the ball out of the guy's hands a little bit more quickly, or grab him by the face mask and say, you got to stop holding it for 17 seconds back there, bub, and throw the football.
No, it looked like he was just running around. It looked like
because they couldn't protect. They couldn't protect at all. I'm not trying to explain away Sam Darnold's horrible performance, and all those bodily fluids, I'm sure, were leaking out of every orifice the way you described. And good for Kevin O'Connell for having such a subdued reaction to watching that play out on the field the way you described it.
It was really funny.
But Kevin O'Connell is, Kevin O'Connell is, I think, a really good offensive coach. But I think he has been crowned a little early. That's all. He got a lot out of Sam Darnold with like a great complement of wide receivers and some really good scheme. I just kind of want to see it a little bit more from both of those guys. And so I don't think your characterization of them as being rising is bad. I can't put them ahead of Baker Mayfield, Todd Bowles, believe it or not.
Oh, that's in my group of I just like them.
Yeah.
I don't think they're ever going to.
I think you should like them more.
Get to a conference. They're never going to get to a conference championship. I think Drake Maye and Mike Vrabel or J.J. McCarthy and Kevin O'Connell can. But I just like them. So we're already at number 15, and I still haven't said anything about the Niners or the Dolphins, and here I come. Sliding. These are sliding duos. Tua Tagovailoa and Mike McDaniel. And Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan. In both instances, I think that the quarterback ain't always cracked up to be. And in both instances, I think the window's closing a little bit on the Niners. And I just don't think the Dolphins got it. They needed to capitalize on the Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, Tua troika. But now the finances of those three guys is just going to tie their hands. And nobody wins in South Florida, period. You just don't see excellence down there. Too many distractions. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I just don't think it's a place that you want to be in Green Bay for great success. Or maybe Foxborough, Outposts, Buffalo, Detroit.
Too much to do in Miami? Too much fun to be had?
Yep.
This is an interesting portion of your list, Tom, because I feel like this is where the good stuff ends. And when I say good stuff, I know you've got them as sliding, so maybe you don't even think they're good, but at least you could go into a season with Brock Purdy and Kyle Shanahan, and depending on the situation, feel pretty good about it. Mm-hmm. You might be able to say that about some of the people that are left on this list because you don't know what's coming, whether it's at head coach or you're not sure how a young player.
Yeah, Atlanta's a good example.
Yes, but I do feel like this is a little cluster. I think you could have had I just like them and sliding into maybe the same sort of category. It's funny because you know what? You have some subheads that are overwhelmingly positive and some that are overwhelmingly negative. But the ones that are positive are hard for me to wrap my head around because even though it's positive, like I just like them, Baker Mayfield, you got him at like 15th or 16th in the league. So I guess that...
Yeah, because they're not going to win. Because I can't rule out Yeah, because they're not going to win Super Bowls. Baker Mayfield and Todd Bowles. Baker Mayfield is not going to win a Super Bowl.
But like
And
starting
Todd
to
Bowles
wonder, sounds like a much more negative descriptor than I just like him. And yet,
okay, how about
I know
starting
you've
to
got
wonder
Joe
about their
Burrow
excellence?
way ahead of Baker
I
Mayfield.
mean, we have a space issue. Starting to wonder about their excellence.
Oh, I like that.
Still elite?
That's good. Yes,
How about
I like
still
that.
elite? Question
I
mark.
like that. I like that. Okay, now I'm understanding a little bit better. Kyle Shanahan, do you think do you think he's a really good coach? Because I think some people would look at him and say he's so good, he should be up in that, still elite question mark or starting to wonder category, like almost regardless of who he's got at quarterback. And the quarterback's not awful.
Yeah.
Brock Purdy's not awful. I think he's better than
not
Tua.
awful, but I definitely think that there's a ceiling there. I mean, yes, he played in the Super Bowl. He was very good in said Super Bowl at times, but that was a Sam Darnold situation. Team was loaded, it was stacked. But when Brock Purdy this year, I could not against good teams, he's too indecisive and prone to run, and he loses a little bit of accuracy, I believe. I'm not going to spend forever on that.
No, I know.
Because I don't feel like I'm a Brock Purdy expert.
That's
and
okay.
some think he's going to say, well, he's 81% of his passes he completed against teams that had 650 or above winning percentage. What are you talking about?
I'm putting those two guys ahead of JJ and Kevin, but I know your bias for JJ McCarthy is not allowing you to see clearly in this instance.
Fair. In the weeds a little. I don't think this one is really arguable. You got Russell Wilson at the end and Mike Tomlin, who's a good coach, and you have TBD and another good coach in Kevin Stefanski. So they're in the weeds a little.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Move on now to the pay no mind list. These are the teams that are just punching the clock. Michael Penix and Raheem Morris, they can extract themselves from that. Anthony Richardson and Shane Steichen, they are the epitome of punching the clock. You want to upgrade at both those spots. Just can't do it yet. Tyler Murray and Jonathan Gannon, pew, 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 pew.
Shots.
That might be unfair. Bryce Young, Dave Canales, Geno Smith, Mike McDonald, Will Levis, Brian Callahan, they all epitomize the pay no mind list.
I would have maybe Murray and Gannon up a little bit, but I know why they're there. I
mean, I guess I could put them in the starting to wonder, but they're not as good as. I mean, I'll never get over Kyler Murray's playoff performance a couple of years ago, ever.
Yeah, I don't think he's. I think he's just okay. Okay, but I think he's kind of in that. This is interesting. This is a fun exercise, Tom. Thanks for doing this. It's interesting because I think he's kind of in that category of like Brock Purdy, quite frankly, and Tua, and like a tick below Baker Mayfield. But I think the coach, because he's still a relative unknown, you'd probably put him behind Kyle Shanahan. So I don't know. Maybe I'd put him. Maybe I'd put them up in the weeds. I might put them in the weeds a little bit because I think they're kind of betwixt and between. Like, what do you do with Kyle Murray? You're paying him a ton of money, but he's not that good. He's just okay. So you're kind of stuck there. It's interesting.
Okay, we had in the weeds a little. Now we have in the weeds a lot. Trevor Lawrence and TBD, Caleb Williams and TBD, Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones.
Jerry's the only owner I think who gets a mention on this list.
Yeah, he's in it. They're just screwed. And then finally we have the Sad Cafe. I was actually going to do all Eagles songs or 70s soft rock. That's an Eagles song, the Sad Cafe. We have TBD and Brian Daboll. We have Aaron Rodgers and the Jets' next victim. We have the Saints. I don't even know who's doing what there. And we have the guy the Raiders overdraft and the guy that Brady hires. That's the 32nd most promising coach quarterback duo in the league. So there's your final 7.
It is. I mean, it's a sad group.
It is a sad group.
And you know what? And I just want the Patriots fans that are listening to that group, just be thankful, be appreciative.
No shit.
That you root for a team that was really bad going into the 2024 draft, and that happened to get the 3rd overall pick in a year where there were 3 really good quarterback prospects. And maybe, like, who knows with Caleb Williams? I'm not saying he's gonna be bad for sure, but like you ended up with one of the 2 best in that class. It looks like.
Mm-hmm.
Just it was kind of lucky. Like if you're looking for a quarterback this year, you are in the sad cafe. If you were looking for a quarterback this year versus last,
I actually was going to do some Tom Petty songs as the headers too, because the one that caught my eye, I'm like, it should be. I was like, it's kind of cringy. You got lucky, babe, and that was the Drake Maye.
Mm-hmm.
When I found you. So the Patriots did get lucky. The initial was not rising; it was you got lucky. Because they are very, very fortunate. I had a question. We talked the other night on the television, and you never know sometimes how the questions are going to be phrased when you're on Early Edition or BST or anything. You kind of have to, or at least I do, answer the question that's posed. Other people are able to just listen to the question and answer the way they want to. But we were asked, who would we prefer, Jaden Daniels or Drake Maye for the next 5 years? And both of us said Drake Maye. And I think that I just want to, as we're talking quarterbacks, just look at that and say, there's a massive, massive, massive difference between their performances this year.
Yes.
And if we're not realistic about the fact that Drake Maye has planted the seed for a little bit of unease with his late game decision making, we would be delinquent.
Remiss. Yeah.
Remiss. Drake Maye's late game decision making is enough to make you say, he's going to have to fix that, or it's getting to be a problem. 2 games at least, he threw game-ending picks. So Jaden Daniels is miles ahead of where Drake Maye will likely be.
He is. Well, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we've seen enough in terms of, like, where will he likely be in a representative sort of situation with representative coaching, play calling, and talent around him. I think we've seen enough where you can envision him at some point in his career being a top 5 quarterback. He has that level of physical talent and innate.
Daniels.
I'm saying Maye, an innate playmaking
yeah, sure.
ability.
I think both of them can.
Daniels, to me, is already excellent. When we're talking about the next 5 years, to me, I'm thinking of like the last 3. And so what does Drake Maye look like 2 seasons from now? Versus Jaden Daniels, I think you could probably have a pretty good idea. Like, he projects really well. My questions were always, Tom.
Maye fits.
My questions
Maye
were always.
fits neatly in that category with Burrow and Herbert. Especially Herbert. He fits neatly in that category. Right next to Justin Herbert. He could be Justin Herbert. He could be Joe Burrow. Could be
I see what you're
Josh Allen level.
Where they are now, where those guys are now. He could get into that tier.
And when you throw those 3 guys together, they're really good comps for different levels. One has turned into MVP level Superman. The other's has been the ultimate blood and guts kind of leader in Joe Burrow. And then Justin Herbert's just, I love watching him play. Friggin' love watching him play.
I just think that for me, the concerns with Daniels, a couple of them have been allayed. Like, he throws over the middle way more than he did in college. Like, he's gotten good coaching and he's changed his game. He's not just a, down the sidelines and slip screen kind of quarterback, which, he did some other stuff in college for sure, but like the vast majority of his throws were like these throws where it's like, can you just live off doing that? At the pro level, I'm not sure you can. You got to play in the middle of the field a little bit more, and he does, and he throws touchdowns in the middle of the field when the field's condensed in the red zone. Like, his decision-making, his accuracy, his athleticism is obvious. I still, like, until he gains weight, like, I think everybody will be concerned about his health moving forward. He stayed healthy for the most part, and he's finishing the year strong, so good for him. He deserves a lot of credit for that. With Maye, Tom, the reason why I'm still really high on him is because he exceeded expectations in the worst situation in the league. And so now, if you're comfortable doing the projection game, which a lot of people in the media are not, right? And I get that too. Well, I got to see it before I can say he can do X, Y, or Z. If you're comfortable projecting, he's on a trajectory that you probably couldn't have even anticipated coming into this year. As mind-numbing as some of the interceptions and fumbles were this year, he exceeded everybody's expectations. He made leaps and bounds that people didn't anticipate based on what they saw from him at the college level. So now if he can keep that going, and you can add talent around him, and you can improve the coaching around him, well, then what's the ceiling on him? And the ceiling is somebody like Josh Allen, and that's what you're looking for.
And when we say Josh Allen, we're not talking about the same exact carbon copy style of play, because it's LeBronian at times. And again, he hasn't won shit. He hasn't even been in a Super Bowl. LeBron won championships. But it's that physical freak kind of aspect I'm talking about. Is that wrong?
No, you're right.
I mean,
he's an alien in a way that Maye is not. Like his arm, Drake May's arm, I don't think will get to Allen's level. As good as an arm as he has.
Cam Newton was an alien in 2013 and 14 and 12 too.
Yep. And Allen's just a bigger guy. Like he's a heavier. Like he'll run over you. He will jump over you. He can do things. You know, he'll fend you off with a stiff arm and still throw it 40 yards down the field on a line. Like he's special in terms of the physical gifts. But playmaking, being able to carry a team and elevate people, like we saw Drake Maye do that. It was a horrible group. And he did it in a way that Josh Allen, quite frankly, couldn't do as a rookie. That was another guy who had a long way to go as a rookie. And Maye in his rookie season outplayed what Allen showed in his rookie season. So that's all it is. It's projecting 2 years down the line for Maye. You can really let your imagination run wild.
Let it run wild. All right, Phil, we have to go to our off-season planning meeting. Oh, there it is. Finally. Just popped into my email here at 11:26. I think he probably realized, Jason Levine did, that I only use my AOL. I don't check my work email, and I'm not on Teams on a regular basis. Phil, let's head over there, huh?
All right, let's do that. Just as an FYI, it's
guy.
Sharon Moore, Mike Pryfer, and the next coach of the Cowboys is going to be Kellen Moore, not Kellen Clemens. Kellen Clemens, former NFL quarterback, not, I believe, in the NFL coaching ranks the way Kellen Moore is. Just wanted to make sure we had those settle in by the end of the podcast. That's all.
Did you watch Front Porch Dad? The guy I sent you the other day?
Yes, I did. He was great. And I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that he reminded you of me a little bit. I wish I was on my stuff as much as that guy. I'm really not. The whole breakfast's going to be at 5:13. I'm going to be making eggs whether you're down here or not. Like, my kids would tell you that's not Dad. Dad has no idea what time it is half the time.
Front Porch Dad on Instagram is absolutely hysterical. And he's mostly a golf guy, but he branches into, he does one about box. This is a good box. We got to save this one. Anyway, I'm not doing it for justice at all. Later, fella.
Bye.